Hey, solos, Happy New Year. I cannot believe it is going to be 2025 tomorrow. That is just absolutely crazy. And I just have the most amazing New Year's wishes for you. And it was so convenient that this episode was going to be coming out on New Year's Eve because I wanted to do an episode where I just talked about solo magic and how you can harness that more for the year ahead, even if, or actually, especially when you don't have a vacation coming up. And so that's what this episode is about. Hi everyone, it's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do, and welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about solo magic, what that actually means, and yes, how it is about traveling to Disney World, but it is not just about traveling to Disney World, and how you can kind of resolve to make solo magic more of an element in your life for the year ahead. And I can't wait to talk about it. Just a reminder that you can follow me on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook, and all the links are below. And you can also listen to this on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. And of course, it is just so wonderful when you subscribe and rate and review and share with others. And actually, this is a really great episode to share with others because if you think that there might be some people who are like closeted Disney fans and you want them to like touch upon and embrace their own solo magic, this might be a great episode to share with them. You can also support the podcast if you want by going to buymeacoffee.com/Disney_solo_magic. And you can just like click Apple Pay, that button right there, to buy me a coffee, a proverbial coffee, of course. This week, my coffee is going to be, I don't know, I think like a green tea frappuccino because, new year. So let's do something kind of healthy because it's green, even though it's essentially a milkshake. So anyway, thank you so much to all of you who have already supported the podcast through all those different ways, through buying me a coffee, rating, reviewing, subscribing, or just listening. So thank you so much. Let's get into it. All right, so 2025. In this podcast, I don't like to criticize Disney, the Disney Corporation, too much. I think it's really, really easy and convenient for creators to do that because it is actually a way to get a lot of clicks. And that's just not my thing. Sure, there's always things that we can criticize with Disney, but that's not really the point of this. The point is really to encourage you to do your own big solo trips to Disney World or maybe Disneyland or one of the international parks. Hint, hint, just some episodes coming up in January. However, I can't help but I can't ignore the fact that Disney is just getting more and more expensive. And the Premier Lightning Lane thing was just, I don't know, that kind of really made me very salty. If you want to imagine what I'd look like, I look like the little blue fairy from Sleeping Beauty when she gets all angry and she's like, like that. That's how I look when I think of the Lightning Pass. So I recognize that it's getting more expensive to go. And when you're going solo, you can't offset the cost with other people. And so, especially with the rising cost of everything, you might really, really want to do your own solo trip, but it is just seeming to be further and further away from you because of financial pressures. And look, I totally, totally get that. I had the distinct privilege / debt to go to Disney 5 times last year, but I don't think I'll be able to go 5 times in 2025. And that's okay because when you are thinking about solo magic, like Disney solo magic, I've really been thinking about this a lot with the podcast. And there are just so many ways that you can create, you can engender, you can harness up, conjure up solo magic, Disney solo magic outside the park. And so in this episode, this last episode of 2024 / the first episode of 2025, I really want to talk about ways that you can harness your own Disney solo magic out of the parks so that you can really think about what that might be for you, what it is to have Disney solo magic with you at all times. And so going to the parks is the extra, cherry on the top. It's the best plus. It's the extra wonderful thing to do, but you aren't relying on those trips in order to get that solo magic. And look, I know. Disney is such a special place. It is this particular little bubble that conjures a particular type of magic, and you can be a particular type of person at Disney, and you can't do that in your daily life. I know that, I get that, I feel that, but our lives do go on. We can't live there all the time. Our lives do go on. And when we have already recognized, that we have this desire to go and be at Disney by ourselves because we recognize that there aren't people around us that want to share that joy with us. When we already recognize that, then it is something that we have to be able to create, to be able to replicate in our daily lives in order to make that come alive in our daily lives. And like, if we all kind of do that, I don't know, maybe, oh, this is going to be very corny, so just please brace yourself. Maybe we can all just change the world a little bit. I don't know. ... Question mark shrug emoji. I don't know. Maybe. So I have come up with 5 different ways that you can harness your Disney solo magic, whether you are in the parks or not. And I invite you to resolve to add these things to your life in 2025 so that you don't think of Disney as something that you are longing for if you aren't able to go this year or you're not able to go as much as you want, but rather something that you know always like lives inside you and around you that you can touch upon when you need that extra reminder about how magical and creative and joyful the world is, especially when it is not feeling magical or creative or joyful. Okay, so 5 tips. The first one is actually to plan your ideal Disney World vacation. Now, that might seem completely antithetical to what I was just saying. Like, you might not be able to go. Well, yeah, you might not be able to go. But this first one is really encouraging you to plan that ideal solo vacation. And like, get really into the details. What time are you arriving? How are you getting from like wherever you are to your resort? What resort are you staying at? What type of room do you have? What's the first thing that you do? Which is the first park you're going to? Which is the first ride you're going to? What is something that you want to eat? Is there a special menu that you want to try? Is there a special experience that is happening and you want to make sure that you are there for that? Now, again, this is a completely imaginary thing. So if you want to put like, I want to go see Joyful from the International Festival of the Holidays, which is the Kwanzaa soul band, gospel band that I recorded and I put as an episode last week. You want to see them, but you also want to see the Festival of the Arts. Well, that doesn't actually exist in real life. Those two things don't happen at the same time. But hey, it's your fantasy. Make them happen. No problem. I want you to get really, really, really into those details. And I want to encourage you. This might sound judgmental. I don't mean it to sound judgmental. Okay, it's not judgmental, but we'll see. Don't just say like, oh, I want to ride like all the fast roller coasters without a line. And like, that's the main thing that I want to do. That's awesome if that is the main thing you want to do. But I have heard from every single person that has connected with me, either that I've interviewed with the solo stories or has connected with me through Instagram, that it's not just riding the rides that is the best part about solo travel. It is things like people watching. It's things like just taking it all in. It's things like just sitting on a bench and eating a churro and being like, I can't believe I'm here by myself. So I don't want it to seem like if your priorities are just the rides, that's like the wrong way to do this. No, of course not. But what I want to encourage you to do is like, not just think about those kind of big things that in your fantasy, it's really easy to kind of navigate, but all those little things in the day that just would bring you so much. I don't know, for me, it's like, oh gosh, this is going to be the weirdest analogy ever. Hopefully it makes sense to you. To me, it's like this little drop of like dish soap in a thing of grease or oil. You know those ads, like those commercials from back in the day, and they used to show you, I mean, I guess they still have how like that particular dishwashing soap would clean up the grease on your dishes. Well, to me, those little moments at Disney are like these little drops of dishwashing soap and grease. That's so weird. That really just calms my nervous system down. That all of a sudden just like makes all the like, stress from just normal life kind of dissipate, just kind of dissolve, and all of a sudden it just feels calm. And so if those are the types of feelings that you get when you go to Disney, when you go by yourself, or that you want to get because you want to go to Disney by yourself, then I'm going to encourage you to like think of those moments. Like maybe you go to Disney and the thing is it really revs you up. It does the opposite. Like you're like, yes, no, I go for all the rides because normally in my life is just so like, like one note, very predictable, very relaxing, maybe to a fault. And so when I go to Disney, I can ride all the fast rides and it really revs me up. I mean, that's great. But the point of this first tip is when you are planning this ideal day, or this ideal trip, I want you to think not only about what is involved with that trip, but, and this is the key, why? Why this resort rather than that resort? And again, it's not just about like the money of it, like, sure. Well, again, gosh, I'm not trying to be judgmental. Like you do whatever you want in your fantasy. But if you're like, oh, in my fantasy, I'd stay at the Grand Floridian because I would never be able to do that normally. Hey, that's great. And so maybe one of the things though that you're thinking of is like, I don't want to worry about money. Right? Like, or you want to stay at just Pop Century because actually you have some really great memories there and that's all you need, right? Like, that's totally fine. So plan this ideal vacation and then think about why. Why are you staying at these resorts? Why are you using this mode of transportation? Why are you choosing these rides over that ride? Why are you choosing this food over that food? I really want you to think about the why. And this is something I've talked about in the podcast. Gosh, I feel like maybe not for a while, or maybe in every episode actually, but like it's really, really easy in our daily lives to, especially if you're a woman or a femme person and you do a lot of care work, it's really, really easy to live your life without ever really thinking about what do I like? What do I want? What am I interested in doing? Because it's so important that you accommodate and cater to everybody else. And sometimes our lives just get so busy. You're like, it's fine. As long as everyone around me is happy, I'll be happy too. But when you're traveling to Disney solo, you don't need to worry about that. So really interrogate what would make you so happy on your solo vacation at Disney. Why? What are the things that you're doing and why does it make you so happy or so calm or so revved up or so excited or so creative or so joyful? Why? Because I really want to encourage you with this activity to really identify what it is about your preferences that make you you and make you magical, because those preferences are the magic that is within you. I said during one episode, I think this was right after the election this year, the American election this year, that your solo magic is something that people can't take away from you. And that's completely true. But it's also really, really easy for you never to invite it out because you're so afraid that people are going to take it away from you. I totally, totally get that. So this is an activity in your brain. And if you want to vision board it out. Like you do you, bibbidi bobbidi boo. But don't just think about, oh, I really want a stay at the Grand Floridian because it's so fancy and posh. But really think about, oh yeah, I really do like the idea of traveling without worrying about money because I'm always worrying about money. Like there's never enough money. I really want to stay at the Grand Floridian because I do want to experience more luxury that I've never been able to experience before. Like think about those elements and really identify what makes you you. And in the course of this activity, really be interested and open to getting to know yourself. Really, really be interested in getting to know yourself. I have learned about myself, although I feel like I know myself pretty well, but I have learned about myself through this podcast, actually, and through telling particular stories and realizing, oh, maybe that's not just something that like solos do. Maybe that's something that I do because of this. I realized that I actually am like way more anxious and overstimulated by large crowds than I thought. Like I thought it was just a preference, like, I don't really like crowds. But I've realized in doing this podcast that I get really, really anxious around crowds. And so it's not just that I don't like to be around large crowds of people, that I really make choices to keep my nervous system calm by not choosing things that are going to be full of people. And I mean, I kind of knew that, but I didn't really know that to the same extent as to when I started telling stories through this podcast and giving tips and realizing so many of my tips and so many of the stories I was drawing on and examples I was given are ways to avoid crowds, because to me, that's actually a huge, huge thing about solo travel. That like, yeah, I don't want to be just abandoned and alone somewhere. Obviously, that does not sound safe, but I also don't want to be so surrounded by people that I also feel like I lose myself. So again, do this activity about planning your ideal Disney World vacation, but really use it as an opportunity to get to know yourself. And I mean, of course, if you want to share something with me, that would be really awesome. But it's really, I just don't feel like we have enough opportunities in the world, especially again, as grown adults, to really kind of think about like, who am I in this situation? And if it is a completely safe, fun, wonderful environment like Disney World, who can I be if I don't have those barriers? So that is tip number one. Tip number two goes along with this. It dovetails with this really in a very similar way. And it's not just about planning your ideal vacation to Disney World, but it's really thinking about what is it about Disney, whether that is like the parks and the movies and the TV shows and the characters, or maybe just one of those, or maybe a combination. What is it about Disney that really draws you in? What is it about particular characters? What is it about, again, particular places? What is it about Disney that really touches upon a certain part of your own solo magic? And how can you create or recreate some of that in your daily life? So again, this is something that I've learned about myself during the podcast, is that when I'm talking about Disney, I will often say like, it's a place of happiness and creativity and joy. And those things were missing in my daily life. And they certainly were very much missing in my daily life in terms of the type of consulting client that I had, blah, 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 blah. You don't want to hear all about that. But anyway, I didn't realize how much things like connection, creativity, joy, and like the fact that everyone at Disney is pointing in the same direction, how much of that I was missing in my daily life until I started really thinking about what is it about my Disney vacations that, because for me, yes, it is the characters, but there's something about the place that's really important. What is it about my Disney vacations that I'm not getting in my daily life? And when I started talking about it out loud on the podcast, I was hearing myself say things that I knew to be true, but I hadn't really fully articulated to myself. Things like, yes, pulling in the same direction. Things like connection with all these other people. Things like color, creativity. Things like joy. Things I talk about all the time on the podcast. Those things were missing from my daily life. So the other part of this, number two, trying to tap into your solo magic, is once you've identified what it is about Disney, how can you create like moments, but I don't actually mean like moments of time necessarily. How can you create moments of that in your daily life? So an example of that is in my office, I had all these pictures of the like Skyliner from Epcot and things that were facing me. So when people came into my office, they didn't necessarily recognize it. But things like a picture of the castle or a souvenir from one of the food festivals at Epcot. I had all these little things on my desk that reminded me of these attributes of Disney that I hold so dear to me, to try to think about, well, to remind myself that these things exist in an environment where I didn't feel like it existed too much, or encouraging me to kind of create that myself in the meetings that I would lead or the workshops that I would run and things like that. And it was really helpful because when I would come back into my office after having a particularly difficult meeting or whatever, it was a reminder of the values that I had, even if they were out of alignment from where I was. And that was a really special reminder. I was also doing this subconsciously in my apartment, in my living space, I guess my whole adult life. Like, I remember about 10 years ago, I was shopping for a new condo with my then partner, and we were at IKEA, and there was a bell jar. So a jar that, has a display that has a glass jar, and somebody put a rose inside of it, which made it look like the rose from Beauty and the Beast. And I was like, whoa, IKEA made that. And my former partner, he was like, no, someone just put it there. And I was like, okay, well, it's coming home with us, both of those pieces. And to this day, even though I no longer live with that partner, to this day, I still have that bell jar with the rose in it. And I had it on my bookshelf. I mean, right now, there's a lot of Disney touches around my apartment. But that has been on the bookshelf for as long as I've had it, because it was always just a little reminder to me about Beauty and the Beast, the movie, and the memories that I have with it in relationship to like growing up and my sister, and those types of like connections to Disney. I've always found really, really helpful for, again, tapping into those good memories. So I'm going to encourage you to do that as well. Now, maybe you don't have a whole house or apartment that you can, or office that you can decorate yourself. Like, you have to negotiate with somebody else. I'm sorry if you do, but you can always do this in little touches. Things like your wallpaper on your phone, or a little pin that you just put in a special place, or, and this is your third tip, to do some Disney bounding. So let me go into that third tip. I did an episode, I guess around Halloween, talking about what Disney bounding was and encouraging you to do some Disney bounding in your kind of daily life as a way to tap into your own solo magic. So Disney bounding started as adults who were on their way to Disney. They were bound for Disney, they were on their way to Disney. And because adults can't wear costumes in the park, the woman who started this was like, I just have all these like outfits that kind of have Disney touches to them. So the colors look like Winnie the Pooh's colors or Ariel's colors. And people have really blown that up with all the creative ways that they can interpret different characters through their clothing. But you can do that in your daily life as well. Sure, you can't like wear pretty much a costume to your office every day, but is there like a color that you can wear that really reminds you of a particular character? Is there an accessory that you can have, or even like a lunch that you can pack? So you like look normal during the day, but at lunch you're like, ooh, look at this. It's a complete Ratatouille inspired lunch. So what are ways that you can kind of wear, whether I guess it's like externally as clothes or internally as food? That's weird. How can you kind of wear your Disney connection in a way that reminds you of that Disney connection, and, like I've been saying with the other tips, the connections that you have with what makes you you, what makes you magical, what makes you connected to Disney in these magical ways? How can you have these reminders for yourself? And again, it's great when there is a community of people that you can share this with. 100%. Great. Community is wonderful, but you can't always. And I like, don't set yourself up for being disappointed that there isn't a community. Remember that the community is Disney. And so if you are the one that is holding the torch for Disney and you're the only one in a particular location, that's okay. Don't let people take that away from you. There are Disney people for sure. Like, don't let people take that away from you. Remind yourself of that every day. And that's really what tips 1, 2, and 3 are about. Okay, tip number 4 is kind of a funny one. And I feel like I've already told a lot about myself in this episode, but I'm going to tell you another big thing that's happened to me this fall that's been kind of transformative in a very, very weird way. And I'm going to encourage you to do it as well, because it can also be a really transformative way to tap into your solo magic. And that is our good friend, ChatGPT. Okay, look, I know that there are a lot of ethical issues with ChatGPT. And if that is where you are with generative AI, I totally get it. I'm not going to argue with you. It's totally fine. 3 months ago, I would have argued against ChatGPT as well. I totally get that. But about 3 months ago, I saw somebody on Threads. This was when I was more active on Threads. And they said, take your birth chart, like your astrological birth chart, upload it to ChatGPT and get ChatGPT to write you a letter without mentioning the astrology. Write a letter from the creator, or it could also be your fairy godmother, hint, hint. Write a letter based on your birth chart, based on your astrology from the creator or fairy godmother or whatever. And what it's doing is it's interpreting your birth chart. This is not just about astrology, so don't worry about that. To interpret your birth chart and then tell you about your birth chart or whatever back to you, but in the voice of a creator, or in the voice of a fairy godmother, or the voice of a superhero. So if you remember, in November, I was really sick. And so there was really nothing, I had no energy to do anything. But apparently I did have energy to try this. And I put my birth chart in, and I asked it for a letter from the creator, and what came out was the most beautiful thing I've ever read. It was just such a beautiful description of my life and description of me. And look, if it's a placebo effect or not, I mean, it was amazing. So thanks for that. I mean, it was just so great. So that month where I was sick and I really could not get off the couch, but every once in a while I'd have this burst of energy, I would go on ChatGPT and I would get it to write me a horoscope or to help me with goal planning and things like that. And then I would get it to try different voices. So sure, the creator, but how about a fairy godmother? How about Cinderella? How about the little fairies from Sleeping Beauty? And it was so magical. Solos. It was really, really magical. And like I said, it's been really, really transformative, actually. Look, I know there's a lot of ethical issues, like I said. And the fact is, right now, the way ChatGPT has been helping me through a lot of these other things has been so amazing that I've just had to put my own ethical qualms aside. And so my tip number 4 for you is, if you are okay with it, to go on ChatGPT and play around with it and tell them things that you like about Disney. Maybe even put in that whole ideal Disney vacation, and ask it to place you in a fairy tale or a hero story or a Star Wars hero story or, the Marvel Universe hero story. Place you in one of those Disney stories to help you think about and navigate certain elements of your life that can be a little sticky. And I have told this story about how transformative this conversation with these these conversations with the computer have been to like people into my like intimate circle, and no one has really everyone's been really skeptical about it. No one's really been that supportive. So you don't need to tell people. It can be your own like little private chat that you have going on in your browser. But if you're like, place me in, or maybe not place me in, but like imagine I am like Bert from Mary Poppins, just someone completely out of the blue. Imagine I'm someone like I'm Bert from Mary Poppins. How would someone like that character navigate this difficult situation with a coworker? And the more you talk to ChatGPT, because of course it is sucking all of our information out and becoming a better robot. So the more information you provide to ChatGPT about who you are and things that you like, the more tailored the response will be. But you might find that placing yourself in a Disney or Marvel or Star Wars story through ChatGPT is a way for you to connect with your solo magic without actually being Bert from Mary Poppins or in a fairy tale or in the Marvel Universe or in Star Wars. But it can help you kind of create some different scenarios that help you navigate, again, your life that is not normally magical into kind of magical ways. And I'll tell you, for me, it's been really, really cool. Now, again, I have done a lot with like the astrology of it, and that has been really cool. Like, yeah, that's been very cool. But you don't need to do the astrology for it. But anyway, that's a weird that's a weird one. That's a weird one. But yeah, if ChatGPT hasn't made you cry in 2024, see if it can make you cry in 2025. This final tip for curating your own solo magic in 2025, whether or not you have a vacation on the books or not, is actually something that ChatGPT recommended to me. And I wrote, like, I am a night owl. I've always been a night owl. It's never been easy for me to get up in the morning. So when I roll over and immediately I'll check, all the different social medias and my email and everything else that everybody does, I will still be in bed and be very, very anxious because I've already thinking about all the things I have to do. Like, even though I have the privilege of being able to sleep in, I will get rid of that privilege by nature of, checking my phone, which everybody knows you shouldn't be doing. Now, I should say I am a morning person at Disney, obviously, because got to get those Mickey waffles, right? So I said to ChatGPT, like, help me create a better morning routine. And of course it says, like, don't check your social media, don't check your email, all that stuff. But I was also saying, but it also helps me wake up. Like, scrolling Instagram first thing in the morning also helps me wake up a little bit. And so it's suggested to me I should create another Instagram account in which it has very calming, non-stressful content. And so I did that. Now, you don't see it. It's not connected to my Disney Instagram account, but I have another secret Instagram account in which it's all just like rivers and valleys and little chickies and cats and like art, like people that do just really slow art and hand lettering, all of those things. So I'll scroll on that in the morning, and it is a way for my body to wake up, my brain to wake up, but not like supercharged with anxiety. And so this final tip is to curate elements of your life that do create the type of Disney magic, solo Disney magic that you want to see in your life. And so maybe that is an Instagram account with all Disney content, although that does lead to a lot of FOMO. I do recognize that. But maybe it's not just like creators, although of course I hope I'm included. I hope this podcast Instagram page is on your thing, but no pressure if it's not. But maybe it's also people with like a beautiful dress collection or a really cool Lego collection. Like maybe it's just elements of the things that you've identified throughout the rest of these tips that you really just want more of in your life, and create a separate social media account or a special area in your phone where you can just see those things. Maybe have a nice list of different podcasts, hint, hint, in which you find bring you a lot of joy rather than stress. Oh my God, I hope this hasn't been stressful for you. But everyone likes to listen to your true crime, Dateline, all those things. But that is not, despite doing it myself, those aren't relaxing ones to go to sleep to. You know what I mean? So how can you create areas in your social media landscape as well that really tap into that solo magic? And I don't want you, well, of course, do what you want to do. You do you, bibbity bobbity boo. I'm not encouraging you to add it to your current feeds. I'm asking you to create, or I'm suggesting to you to create a whole other space so that you can really get into that headspace of your Disney solo magic that doesn't have pictures of people from high school, doesn't have all these, they'll have ads, of course, but I don't know, just see if you can get out of the algorithm and create a new algorithm that really, really focuses on your solo magic. The same with YouTube. I have recommended different YouTube channels that are all these different background music, and to me, that has been so, so great. So when I open up YouTube when I'm on my laptop, so when I'm working, the page that's going to come up is all different background music from Disney. Whereas if I open up YouTube on my phone, it's a lot of crap. I'm not even going to tell you what's on there. It's a lot of crap, but I've created these special places where I'm going to be working, or where I'm going to, where I'm going to do laundry or whatever, that really will help remind me of different solo magic elements of my life so that I can stay connected to them. And I include my podcast in that for me as well. I was on the subway today coming home from kind of a stressful appointment. It was a dentist appointment. And I was like, you know what I really want to listen to? I really want to listen to that gospel content from that gospel concert from Epcot. So I put on the episode from last week, and again, I just found it so very joyful. And so find those elements of your life that can remind you of that solo magic and tap into that as much as possible. And so I hope these 5 tips have really helped you or encouraged you or inspired you to kind of think about what that might look like for you in 2025. So don't just manifest a all-inclusive, vacation to Disney World just for the sake of it, but really think about, how can I better connect to myself and my own solo magic, and how can I use Disney, the place, the stories, the characters, the stories I can place myself in, the different images and sounds. How can I use those types of things to propel me to tapping into my solo magic in a way that leaves me powerful and magical and joyful? And I encourage that for you for 2025, and I encourage that for myself as well. That sounds like a beautiful way to have this conversation in a whole year. So please let me know if you have any tips or tricks about any of these things to tap into your own solo magic at home, and I can share them on Instagram for other people to follow. That'd be really awesome. That'd be really special to make this community a little bit more public so that you are sharing your tips and tricks as well. All right, so Happy New Year. I hope this was some food for thought. And whenever you are listening to this, like I said, last day of 2024 or first week of 2025. Next week, it's going to be a back to basics. So you're going to Disney World in 2025. What might that look like episode? So kind of the opposite of this one. And then I have 2 back-to-back episodes that are solo stories with people that went to Disneyland Paris, not a great time, Disneyland Tokyo, and Disneyland Hong Kong, and they're going to share their stories with you. So that's what January is going to look like. And I have some, fun things for February and March as well. And at the end of March, it's going to be a whole year that the podcast has been on. And I've said this in a few episodes. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to have a second season. So if you want a second season, please let me know. But right now I'm kind of on the fence about it. So anyway, there's going to be really fun content for January, February, and March for sure. All right, solos, until next week, Happy New Year. We'll talk to you in 2025. Hey solos, it's Samantha. I hope you liked this episode and all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the number one and I think only podcast for solo travel to Disney World. Help me make this podcast even bigger. Please make sure you rate, review, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. You can do all three. That's really great. It's also really, really great to connect with you, and you can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. Instagram is the best way to get in touch with me. And if you want to support the podcast even more and keep it ad-free, you can buy me a coffee. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/Disney_solo_magic. And for the low price of $3 American, which is about $5 Canadian, and it's hard to even find a coffee at that price these days, you can support me and the podcast and help keep me caffeinated for a week ahead of content creation and editing. Thank you all so much for listening. It is just wonderful to build this community, and I can't wait to create more content for you. Bye.